God wants us to know his plan. And so basically, his plan in John 14, Luke 24, Acts 1, 1 Corinthians 15, 1 Thessalonians 4, Revelation 3 is the rapture of the church. What's the rapture of the church? For us to finally be able to explain what we did with our lives. And what we are to do with our lives is to be measured by Christ, whether or not we lived it for good or for not good, which is called phaulon in Greek, which means good for nothingness. And so we stand before the judgment seat of Christ. Oh, good. The Lord does not want me to use a remote. Bonnie said, you shouldn't use that. And I said, I won't. So, the tribulation. You know what the Bible calls that? The time of Jacob's trouble. It's to bring Israel to the point that they are all brought into one location. The Antichrist can surround them. They are being destroyed in the final Holocaust. And 2/3 of all Jews are massacred. This is Zechariah. This is Wednesday. I'll cover it then. At the last moment, Zechariah says, when they have nowhere else to look, they go like this. Help. Finally, they ask for help. Through the skies. Jesus, every angel in heaven, and all of us. What a moment. So I won't talk about it because you'll experience that. That leads to the second coming of Christ, which is chapter 19 of Revelation, which launches Christ's literal rule on earth for 1,000 years, fulfilling all of his promises to Israel. And then, even after Jesus ruling on earth, they won't go along with it. Earthlings won't. Everyone entering, by the way, the millennium is saved, because the sheep and goats judgment divides the saved from the unsaved. Everybody entering the millennium, the Gentiles and the Jews, are saved. But their children and their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren don't go along with it until the vast majority. And we'll talk about that when I get to Zechariah 12. It's amazing what happens. And then the last thing, of course, is heaven. So let's get, now that I have used up at least 1/3 of my time or more, let's survey. Now, I spend an entire week with students going through the ramifications of Ezekiel 36, which, by the way, let's just look at it. Ezekiel 36 has one of those verses that's really good to have memorized. If you're a collector of verses to be memorized, Ezekiel 36, verse 26 and verse 27 is one of the most beautiful descriptions of salvation. This is the supernatural work that God does in everybody who his Spirit regenerates. Everybody who is born again, this is what God does. Now you say, what's it doing in Ezekiel? Because this is a new covenant promise. By the way, the new covenant was made not with us, but with Israel. But thank God, Jesus at communion brought the new covenant and said, my cross and my death and my burial, my resurrection, and this celebration we have is a cup, the new covenant blessing for you, my church. But the promise, biblically, was made to Israel. And it's what God's going to do, we're going to see Wednesday in Zechariah 12 to 14. But look what he's offered to do for us now through the new covenant of Christ's blood. I will give you a new heart. I will put a new spirit within you. I will take, this is verse 26 of chapter 36, I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh, and I will put my spirit within you. Now look at this. This is what Paul was talking about in Titus chapter 2, verse 11, 12, and 13. Paul says, the grace of God that brings salvation teaches us to deny ungodliness. Look what verse 27 says. I will cause you to walk in my statutes, and you will keep my judgments and do them. That's the new covenant. That's a new heart. That's a new spirit. That's the old heart taken away. That's why when we confront the old us and struggle with it, what we have to do is remind ourselves that we don't have to live that way anymore because we have a new operating system. So that's chapter 36.